Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Between a Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Stephen Colton,
And I'm Christopher Patrick.
and I want to start off saying that this episode and every other episode is brought to you by none other than Mark Guggenheim, and we're going to show you his Twitter right here, right off the bat. Oh, that's the wrong comment. There we go. It was a little sample comment, like, here, click here to do this. So it's at M Guggenheim on Twitter. I made sure to put on Twitter so people knew what Twitter was.
The right Twitter address there. So
yeah, and hopefully soon he'll have something to talk about. He'll be on. I know when Green Lantern's ready, he'll be on to talk about that. But hopefully he has a project beforehand.
You know, Mark's got his fingers in everything, right? It seems like he's all over the place. I can't imagine that he doesn't have some other projects in the works.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're working hard on Green Lantern, and I don't know their shooting schedule. I know they're still early in writing, but again, they could have 6 episodes written, and then by the time the 7th started getting written, then 1 and 2 are being filmed. So who knows? But yeah, this episode, I guess I didn't really have a set thing. I wanted to kind of talk about, I mentioned it before to you about like toys, collectibles, things like that. Just branching off of like, did you see that movie? Which is fun to talk about, but I think it would be cool and notice like the audience is growing. And so slowly but surely. And so I think maybe like introducing new topics, like new things.
Right.
It's not like we're going to have a cooking show one day. I mean, I'm not because you could see me put bread in a toaster, but I mean, other than that,
hey, not to brag, I'm actually a pretty decent cook.
And so, yeah, if I was a pretty good cook, maybe one day we could have a cooking contest or something crazy like that. I don't know, but maybe one day.
This is not the Food Network,
No.
So,
and as funny as it is when I say kind of like going away from TV. For this episode, I did want to mention it was actually my mom that told me, and I had forgotten completely. I was on the phone with her just before the show, and she's watching her TV guide or whatever it is, and she says, "Oh, is that one of those shows you like, Batwoman?" And apparently, Batwoman started tonight.
It does, yeah.
And so I'm probably gonna be watching it tomorrow because I don't have cable anymore. I turned that off. Okay. And I know CW is a local, free network and everything, but I don't have one of those antennas. And I have one, but I don't really want to struggle. Plus, it's halfway over at this point. But CW app is free, and I'll probably just watch it tomorrow on CW.
I will tell you that, number one, I will not give you any spoilers once I watch it. I'll keep it to myself.
No, that's fine.
You get a chance to see it. I feel like Batwoman is one of those shows right now on really shaky ground. I mean, I think ever since Ruby Rose abruptly quit the show, and they had to recast with another actress who is completely different than Ruby Rose. I'm intrigued and curious and a little apprehensive about how they're going to kind of essentially reboot itself and still do the show. So.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but I'm glad that they didn't recast because it leaves the potential open for a comeback or a return. And I do want to talk a little bit about TV. Maybe we can just kind of get that out of the way and go on with other stuff because I have been watching Titans lately.
Oh yeah, and that was those things that you want to hear. So,
and it's that show. I could not believe some of the things that, I saw and heard within the first few episodes. The first episode, when I heard the first F-bomb dropped, I mean, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? This is a show about the Teen Titans, essentially. And it's like, that's where the show goes? Okay, I can get more behind it.
So there is Teen Titans, which you kind of expect to be more PG, PG-13. But this is not Teen Titans.
Right.
The Titans, they're all essentially adults, with the exception of Raven. And so, that it's a much more grown-up show, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why Titans is on HBO Max.
I can see that now. I guess I never really thought about it. Like I knew it was HBO, but then I was like, well, I mean, then again, HBO owns Sesame Street.
Right.
So I was like, I don't know, maybe it's going to be in between. But I told Mark, you can look, I love it, and he's admittedly he told me like he's never seen Titans. I'm like,
Oh, really?
you gotta watch it. He's like, he stays busy. He's been meaning to watch it forever, but I just now started watching it too. And he wasn't involved in making Titans, of course, but still, after seeing the crossover, on Crisis and seeing that the two little Titans cameos, it made me really appreciate those cameos more. And that's why I told Mark. I was like, look, man, this is awesome. He's like, that was a very hard cameo to pull off. Probably because, I mean, he didn't say, but I can only speculate. But I would think that, the tone of that show being what it is on HBO, crossing over into the CW, like
Right.
that alone was like probably if CW folks like, no, hold on, we can't have that associated with us. But yeah, what a great show that is. I'm into season 2, I think now. I keep falling asleep watching it late at night and then having to go back and rewatch what I slept through.
I will tell you that what I've watched all the way through the end of season 2, and I just kind of realizing to myself that season 2 is just as good as season 1. Right?
So far, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only, yeah.
You get the character development. You don't feel like it's rushed. There is a degree of reality, I think, to the characters, and I like it. I think there is just as much as we often see this superhuman side of superheroes. I think we also see the real humanity behind them, right?
Yeah.
They get bruised and injured, and they still keep going. I think that was interesting to me.
And I gotta say, I was really confused near the end of season 1 because I think I might have like nodded off during a tiny little bit.
What were you?
And then the one where you see Robin kill Batman.
Oh, okay.
And you're like, oh my god! And because he's in the future, and I forget the blonde lady's name. What was her name?
So that was Dawn.
Yes. They're married, they have kids and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, when did this happen?
Okay.
And I didn't realize until like a little ways through the episode, like, oh, this is like a future thing. And so that really confused me for a bit. I'm like, wait a minute, so Batman's not dead? I don't understand. But then I realized what happened. He was really just possessed and seeing this just to drive him towards the darkness, which worked. But then you see Raven pull him back again. And that whole 2 or 3 episode, it kind of like flowed over from season 1 into season 2. Like that was great stuff. Yeah. Once I made sense of it and realized what was going on, and to see Batman get his neck snapped, basically, I'm like, oh, you didn't see his face, but you see Batman laying there, and it's just.
So I will tell you that considering all we've waited for in the Arrowverse and CW to get a legitimate Batman, I will just tell you that you will see more of Batman.
And I like how they do it too. Because so far, the first season, you saw that little tiny glimpse, you saw the little silhouette in the shadows and stuff. But, I mean, and I was expecting to see Bruce Wayne at least. When they're showing flashback of when he adopts Dick, he's like, he's never there. Yeah. But you see, like, the lady saying Bruce Wayne is, like, adopting you. You pay attention and you listen to him. And then he keeps coming back there and it's like, keep talking about Bruce Wayne. You never see Bruce Wayne. So it really makes you want it. So the way they built it up is great because you don't want to like turn on the first episode and like, hey, I'm Batman. Watch how I throw the batarang. Okay, ready? Watch closely, Dick. You don't want to see all of that.
Right, and you don't. However, I will tell you that Bruce Wayne figures quite heavily in season 2, and just as a little bit of fan service to me, the guy who plays Bruce Wayne is the same actor who played Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones.
Okay, see, that's another show I still have to catch.
Okay, you need to catch up. That's been over for a while, but it's worth it. That said, brilliant actor. I know that his stage fighting chops are totally legitimate, and so he kind of reminds me of like an Anthony Hopkins kind of.
Okay.
Just the way that he speaks. is just very dramatic. You'll see what I mean. But if you haven't
Yeah.
already seen it, you guys should check it out. So who's your favorite character in Titans right now, or
Now,
who?
see, I keep wanting to see. I know he's kind of in that transition, but I keep wanting to see Dick turn into Nightwing. But as far as like overall characters, uh, I don't really know. I know some of them. Right off the bat, I knew who Raven was because I didn't personally watch the Teen Titans animated series, but I had like younger cousins and stuff that watched it, and I saw bits and pieces, which is how I started watching SpongeBob SquarePants. Um, which that's a funny show even for adults.
Right, right.
But I had seen enough of it to be aware of who characters were. So I mean, you have the Beast Boy, and you have Raven and Starfire, and all these people. I gotta say, probably at least so far, I would think overall would be Dick Grayson, just because like he's the one I know more about. He's the one I'm more familiar with, and all this Batman history. Like I really need to go back and spend millions of dollars on comic books and read all this history of Batman, because apparently there's been what 4 or 5 Robins,
Right.
and it's crazy. And I know at one point Dick Grayson is Batman, like in the comics, like at some point. And it was really cool to see both Robins, you know, and like Jason Todd Robin, of course, is the one that the Joker kills in the comics. So I know I'm like, oh my gosh, and they talk about Joker, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm loving that. But I guess yeah, I think Dick Grayson probably would be my favorite
Okay.
overall so far.
Yeah, I really agree. I really like the actor who plays the part, and I
Hmm.
think that we are seeing uh, a Dick Grayson Robin who is really going through an identity crisis,
Hmm.
right? He knows that he can't be the orphan boy ward of Bruce Wayne anymore. He doesn't want to be the sidekick anymore, and he doesn't want to become the Dark Knight that
Yeah,
Batman had become. He really wants to be his own man. I think that's part of the reason why he joins the police force, so he can
hmm
continue to do good, but do it legitimately. But I think that we certainly see him searching for his for his new identity, right?
oh yeah,
He's Robin anymore, but he needs to be something else. And I won't spoil it for you, but you already know what's coming.
yeah. I mean, I know enough. Now they've only had the 2 seasons, right? Or did they have a third?
Only two, and I was really disappointed
Okay.
uh, when it did not move on to season three. I sat there for a moment. I'm like, it's over. So the
Mm.
waiting for the next season certainly is going to be a difficult one. But
Yeah, because I already know that like Superboy, I guess, is in, and I don't know if it's in season 2 or 3 coming up, but I know they introduce him at some point. I've read that enough already.
yeah,
Um,
Superboy and Crypto are both
oh
in
wow,
season two. Um,
okay,
that's really good. Um, so I think that I really enjoyed the character of Raven.
yeah,
In one sense, she seems very innocent, and
hmm
and on the other side, um, in the animated series, Raven had seemed powerful, but we never really got to see just how dark she was.
right,
In this series, to say they put it all out there, they're not holding back. I mean,
hmm
you powers that she doesn't understand and doesn't know how to control, and they often end up, uh, you know, just cutting loose and going to the extreme. I
yeah,
really enjoy it, and again, she's really just getting started right now.
oh yeah.
Able
I
to do
loved, I love when they put the little emerald or the whatever you want to call it into her forehead.
right.
That moment, it just kind of like embeds itself. I'm like, oh, that's her. That's her. She's got it in her head.
Yeah, I was
And
wondering at what point that she was going to get it. I mean, did she
yeah,
start with a press-on jewel or something? So the as we see, that sort of kind of unlocks a lot of her potential. So
mhm.
you see what I mean, going into the next season. But I really, really I really, really like her, just because of the potential that she has. Um,
I
so
like. I also like Beast Boy. I mean, because he's for the larger part of the first season. I'm like, can he change into anything besides being a tiger? And then eventually you see him, the first little snake, he slithers out, and I'm like, oh, he's not a tiger, yeah. And I don't have any hate against tigers. I'm just saying, like, it'd be nice to have them turn into a bat and fly away or whatever. But that was
yeah,
cool.
they he doesn't get a lot of opportunities yet to go outside of the
Mhm.
tiger. I think that he's got a bit of a mental block of what
Yeah,
his abilities are. He thinks it's just being able to shift into a tiger, and they do a good focus on his character in season two, which you will see. And
mm.
he really needed that moment to develop more. But I am looking forward to a time when he cuts loose and he becomes more adaptable, as we know that he's
Yeah.
capable of.
And I also noticed, um, I always forget some of the characters' names. I don't know why, but Hank, played by the dude who plays Aquaman in Smallville.
Yeah. Okay. So
I,
I
I like him.
did not make the connection with that. Yeah, Hank plays Hawk,
Hawk, that's right.
and then his girlfriend, right? That's Dawn,
Mhm.
right? So they're that superhero couple. Neither of them have powers, and
Yeah.
yet, much like Robin, they don their costumes, and as we find out, they have really good reasons for doing what they're doing.
Hmm.
I don't
I
know.
like I like that backstory when they did that flashback and showed, this is kind of how they got started. I really enjoyed all their stories and their backstories. It seems more, I don't want to say realistic, but more organic and fluid, other than just like, well, I'm gonna put on a bright red costume and run really fast now.
Right.
Um,
I think that their decision to become superheroes comes from a place of
mhm.
real pain and darkness, and even as a boy, Hank had this desire to protect his brother. And I thought that was a really powerful moment when
Yeah,
he's in the locker room and he sees his little brother and he knows exactly what's going to happen. That his
yeah,
coach is going to go and sexually abuse his brother. And when he realizes there's no way that somebody's not gonna get out of there um, without being abused, he takes his brother's place. And I had
mhm.
thought right there, that was the moment in Hank's life when he became the hero, that he was going to step in and fight for those who couldn't. Um, and so the idea that they begin their crusade, first and foremost, going after child predators who had
Mhm.
somehow evaded justice the legal way. I thought, man, I can see that. And who wouldn't want to sock one of those guys in the head?
Yeah, repeatedly as he
Right?
did. Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about it. It's like not just being thrust into some powers and then just becoming a hero just because. There was a raw and real reason for it, and that's with anybody on that show. I mean, some of them, yeah, were just like, "Oh, look at me! I can turn into a tiger, so I'm going to use this." But there's just the style and the overall tone of that show, what really surprised me. I thought it was going to be kind of cheesy and kind of, not really kid like, but because I knew even though it's on HBO, it's going to be, it's going to still be about these characters, and there's only so much Warner Brothers is probably going to be like, okay, now you go and you do this and you show that, like, you know, so they're still going to pull back. Like once I heard them dropping those f bombs, I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to show nudity? Like, what is this?
Right. And
But
they do.
do they do? Okay, well, so far I haven't seen anything like, out. I didn't, they've been creative with it, I guess, so far, and not really have it in your face, kind of like hidden in shadows and like lighting and stuff. But still, it's really impressive. Like I was not expecting to really like it. as much as I do, and it really threw me off. And now I'm just like, well, I have to watch more of that. Like I have to finish that show, and I have to watch Game of Thrones as well. I may end up having to keep HBO because I'm on a 30-day trial,
Yeah,
and I may have
I would
to keep it.
do that. Binge it all while you can. So
Yeah, I mean, I really wish with streaming services though, customize your own playlist. You can have a list of like I like this show, this show, this show, this show. So I find myself scrolling through there, watching different shows. But I wish you could pull kind of like an iTunes playlist or something where you can build like episode one of Titans, then episode one of Game of Thrones, and then this, and then this, and then have it cycle through, one through four, and then kind of get to the next episode on the next cycle. But I mean, so far I haven't seen a service do that.
no,
And that would be really great because then, you're still watching the content on that platform and you're watching it without having to back out. And the way the HBO Max app is set up, you go into this show to continue watching. Now with the Netflix or whatever, you go in and it's like, would you like to continue this episode or choose from another one? But it seems like for me, maybe it's just the version of the app I have. You have to go to the episode, it starts playing, and then you have to back out to get to the episode list again. It's a little bit annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. It's quick, so it's not too terrible.
yeah. I like HBO Max better than the Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I find it more manageable. But yeah, I didn't even know I had HBO Max. We have HBO subscribed through our bundle, but I didn't know that I had an HBO Max, and so that was a nice surprise.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah.
But yeah, going on to like other things like toys, collectibles, things like that. I like action figures, and I don't really have it in here with me. My little corner in this kitchen is like a little office type thing where every little collectible either that I buy or someone gives me as a gift, I kind of place in here. There's not enough space really to put everything. But for instance, and random things like this car is Power Rangers themed. It's a 2002 Honda, little things like this I appreciate. This was a gift. I mean, and other things that and this was a good one too. These little stuff like plush dolls of Marty and Doc from Back to the Future.
That's great.
I mean, and I don't spend tons of money on these things. I'm not like a huge collector.
Right.
But I what got me to think about this topic was, I sent it to you, I think, this Lego set that was you build, and it's almost the same size, but it's the replica of the original Nintendo video game system. And it's something like 8,000 pieces or 80,000, a million pieces, whatever it is. And that Lego set is like $300.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, wow, Legos are expensive, aren't they? And that kind of had me going down this rabbit hole in my own head of like toys and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, that's a fun thing to talk about.
Right. So
In the history.
Yeah. You open the floodgates with Legos. And I will tell you that Legos was one of those toys that my brother and we would spend hours, hours and hours and hours of building things with Legos. And I know everybody, you get the box and it tells you how to go and
Right.
put the picture on the box. And of course, we would do that the very first time when we had that set. And then the next time we would do just very random, obscure things. I think at one point we were making our own Transformers.
That's cool.
And probably our favorite thing to do was to play like Demolition Derby, right? Each of us would make our own like highly armored race car, and then we would sit in opposite ends of our kitchen in our house, and we would ram them at each other. And the idea was you wanted to have the car that you would put together properly so it didn't
break.
Yeah. Anyway, those were memories. But I think of Legos as one of those creative toys, right? That it just gave us something to do. It gave us an outlet. And I remember even as I grew up, that we had ended up taking our big giant box of Legos and passing them on to another kid that we knew. Um, you know,
Speaking of Legos, this is a car I built, I think. I mean, I had pieces. I had this yellow bucket up here full of Legos, and I have a little book for it. And I bought this book of Legos. I bought this bucket of Legos probably. I think I'm going to keep this guy sitting out. Probably, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And I have a couple of other sets that, I like to buy sometimes. I don't buy massive sets because they're so expensive.
Yeah.
Especially like the properties like Star Wars and, things like that. It's ridiculous. And now Nintendo and Mario and all this stuff, like you really can't get a small Lego set, a standard car. I don't know if this came out of a set or if I actually designed. I think I designed this because no good Lego engineer would make the front end of a car look like a shoebox. But just out of my own creativity, I mean, that's not too bad. Yeah. But even a car about this size is like $15 just for like a small set. And I've got a few in there. I'm not particularly like fond of any certain type of car, but it's like a Ford Mustang, but it's like a racing. I had the stickers, and I was like, that looks like a fun thing to build because it looks like a real car instead of like a box with wheels.
Right.
And then I have the Lego City set where it was it's like basically an SUV and little camper. And it's a fun little thing to put together. And I like to build those. I wouldn't go out and buy like a $400 Lego Death Star because number one, it's just so expensive. Like, who could pay that much money for that many Legos? And then once you build it, it's like I want to smash it and do it all over again, but it takes hours and hours and hours to build these big sets. And I just don't have the patience for I do have the patience, but it would take me a year to build something of that magnitude. I couldn't do it.
I think that for me, the beauty of Legos and like erector sets or Lincoln Logs, any of those things was learning to take the pieces that you had and adapting them to make what you wanted. I thought for me that was kind of the fun challenge of the whole thing, right? Is like, okay, so I know this piece is supposed to be like either the front of a part of a roof or maybe the front end of a car, but I'm gonna adapt it to make something else entirely. For me, that was the fun challenge, and I feel like it's one of those things that really encouraged me to think for myself and to kind of plan and see how I could be creative.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. As we talk about toys and collectibles and stuff, it's funny how things work. People know that I like superheroes and I like a lot of the I watch The Mandalorian and the Star Wars, Star Trek, the superhero kinds of shows and movies. And once the word gets out, when your birthdays and when holidays come around, you end up getting a lot of things in that realm. And just recently, my Funko Pop collection has exploded.
Oh wow!
So I've got like a Baby Yoda, a Daenerys Targaryen, and a Jon Snow Funko Pop. I've got a Stan Lee and
nice.
And a Captain America wielding Thor's hammer. If you didn't have any evidence that I was a complete and utter nerd, Exhibit A, right? So
yeah, I've never really collected Funko Pops. I've had a couple over the years, but I don't know. Not that they don't appeal to me, but it's just like when you go to a store, it's always random ones that I don't really. I can't find the ones I really want. I loved The Office, so and when I found out they had a whole line of The Office Pops coming, which was a couple of years ago, I think, I never got them, but I always wanted to.
Right.
And the same with so many others. You start seeing them, and you're like, oh my gosh. Um, so I went to see my mom the other day. Finally, after all this time, my uncle actually took me over. I stayed the night with him, and we kind of rode over in the morning. And while we were there, we went into an FYE store. No, I don't know if you've had those there. I'm sure they're pretty big company, I guess.
What is FYE?
FYE is a For Your Entertainment. Is And they were like a record movie store, and they sell collectibles. They used to be a lot bigger, I guess, and they've scaled back. Um, I guess I don't know if it's like a regional thing or if it's because I've heard of them being in bigger cities, but at the same time,
I've heard about them, so
okay,
maybe they haven't made it to California.
maybe it might just be like an Eastern United States kind of thing. But that's what they sold, like records, well, CDs, I guess, and movies, collectibles, box sets, things like that. The downside to a place like that is, you could find almost anything. Um, there's going to be some things that are harder to find, but compared to like a Best Buy or another retail store, you will find a lot more there. But then with that is a higher price tag. So a collectible being like a $15 to $20 action figure would cost $28 or $32 or whatever. So you're struggling, like, do I buy this or do I just wait and try to find one online cheaper? But it's just a nostalgia of going into it again, because we used to have one here in my town, and then they closed down years ago, and now that's the closest one within 100 miles. And I think that town there where that store was, it's like 80, almost like 86 miles, 80 or something like that. So it's like an hour and a half drive from my house, which isn't that far, but it was still cool to go in. We didn't buy. I did buy a movie, which, funny enough, I bought Stand By Me, which I love that movie.
Yeah.
I own the movie already. Funny enough, my DVD that I own already is at my mom's house. I forgot to grab it when I was there. I left it over there. I lived there I guess it was like 6 years ago. I was living there, and then I moved back to North Carolina, and I left that movie there. And every time I've been over there, I've always forgotten to take it back home with me. And so we get to the FYE down the road after leaving her house, and I go, oh my gosh, I left that movie there. And so instead of going all the way back, I'm just like, I'll spend the $10 and buy it again, because it's a great movie, and I haven't gotten to see it at least in 6 years. So I started thinking about it more and more and more, and I'm like, I really got to watch that movie again. But yeah, I mean, their collectibles and stuff are awesome. They have a ton of pops. That's why I brought them up, because their entire back wall of the store is filled, and everywhere you look, it's like, I didn't know they made a pop of this person or that person. There's Simpsons pops of different characters, and then there's so many like random sitcoms that like aren't even on the air anymore. You'll see characters off of those, the Golden Girls and like all these other things. It's just unbelievable the different characters that they get for these things. And then of course you have those gigantic pops that are like 4 feet tall, or that have, they all have huge heads, but I mean, the head is literally like the size of like, well, maybe a small cantaloupe or something, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a caricature kind of art thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly anything like the character resembles, and yet they're fun. I think there's a certain style that's exaggerated that you expect.
It's sort of like these guys. I've started seeing these. I don't know about other retail stores, but Walmart has a line of these where different movie characters and TV characters try to fix Doc's hair here.
That looks like Beetlejuice, doesn't it?
Kind of does.
Yeah.
Oh no, Marty! It's the Libyans! They're after me! Oh, I mean, I could tell the hair, but I mean, yeah, it does. If the hair was a little greenish, it would be Beetlejuice. Especially at the top, it's like, I don't know what it is. He's got the little hook coming out of the top of his head, though.
Right. I guess the question comes down to you. We're both guys. I'm a 41-year-old man, right? And essentially, we are playing with dolls. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, have you asked yourself, what is it that makes these so appealing?
It is. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's the the child inside of you still, like that childlike personality that likes to play pretend, and even if you're not sitting there like making them fight or do anything with them, it's still looking at them and remembering those things. And I think a lot of it is like you associate it with maybe if they were gifts, like who gave you the gift, and it's like if this could be a Cinderella, and it would be like, oh, if the right person gave it to me, I would like cherish it forever. But yeah, this looks nothing like Marty McFly. And I just noticed his hair can peel back. It's just like a flap, and it's no. This is Marty, like maybe years later when he was really stressed out after all the time travel.
Right.
But yeah, I think it is that. I think it's like you associate it with certain things from your past. Just like this collectible here. Of course, if anybody watched the original Power Rangers show, this is a replica of their little power morpher that they used. I had this before. Yeah, and I love this thing. This makes lights and sounds. I don't have batteries in it though, so it won't work right now. But I had this before, and I, was needing a little extra cash, so I sold a few things. And then I go to my uncle's house, and it was a really belated Christmas for us because, like, I hadn't been to anybody's house in a while. But they gave me this, and it was awesome. And because I had it, I had to get rid of it. Basically, out of necessity, and that's one of the reasons I like having collectibles. Because, like, if it's of any value to somebody else, and you have it, and you're down and you need some cash, it's like, oh, okay, this person's interested. I like the whole trading and selling and kind of thing. And the little coins, it comes with, 5 original coins, and they're actually die-cast metal. They're pretty pretty heavy. I mean,
not just plastic; they're actually medallions.
Yeah, they really are. And the little set they come in, they kind of prop up. And they can you twist it and pop it right out, and they're interchangeable.
Yeah,
and it's this kind of thing. People see me. It's like I'm 34 years old, and I'm sitting here sometimes like I couldn't even get it to go in now. I'm sitting here like, yeah, I'm a Power Ranger, woo! And it's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with you? But no, this takes me back. When I was a kid, this is my favorite toy. That and Legos.
Yeah.
So I think that's a large part of it.
Yeah, I will tell you that I think there are 2 types of collectors when it comes to this stuff. There's the collector who keeps it in the box, and the collector who takes it out of the box, right?
Yeah.
Are you? Which one are you? Are you typically one who keeps it in the box, or do you take it out?
Well, it depends, I guess. If it's smaller things like this, it's not very rare, and I think I might have shown this on here before. But it's a Matchbox car of Mr. Bean's little Mini Cooper or whatever.
Right.
And I also have the Hot Wheels of the Ninja Turtle van. That was a weird thing to say. But I actually bought 2 of these, so I have one that is open.
Okay.
And so sometimes if it's something cheap and small, like Hot Wheels cars are like $1 if you find basic Hot Wheels cars. And so I was like, I'll buy 2 of them and have one that I can open and kind of like roll every now and then and pretend I'm 5 years old. And I've got a ton of these little Minion figures laying around on my desk here. And these came out of those little like Kinder Egg candy things. I would buy them I wanted to at least collect them all. I don't know why, but I'm not a huge fan of Minions or anything like that. But I know my dad always liked them, and it kind of got me into liking them a little bit. And so there's a ton of little ones. So I think I'm kind of half and half. Of course, with this thing, I opened it because I like to hold it in my hand, and it has a little belt holster, which is very heavy. So if you try to wear it and pretend, it sags down. But I mean, a lot of the times I'll keep the actual packaging, but have it opened and put the boxes away. So if I do want to sell or trade or anything, I have the boxes because a lot of people really value the box. They don't care that it's been opened, but they want the boxes.
Right.
And so, and it really, like I said, it really depends on the thing. If it's like super rare, there's only one of them ever, that I might open it and they go, ooh, this is cool, and then put it back in the box and then leave it stored in the box.
Yeah. you had brought up the idea of collecting, but also selling. I know some
Mhm.
people are really good at kind of knowing the trends and seeing, knowing what markets are good for collectible items and all that kind of stuff. They're really good at selling things for a profit. Um,
Mhm.
I learned that lesson the hard way. When I was a kid, I was really into comic book collecting. I just about lived at the comic book store. All my spare change went to buying comic books. I was one of those people that I bought the plastic acetate covers. I
Mhm.
bought the hard paper backing to make sure that it reinforced the comic books so they would hold up and they wouldn't get damaged. And I remember one summer I had like a summer camp that I wanted to go to and another kind of trip that I had planned. And my parents weren't going to pay for it. I had to fundraise all of it. And I got desperate enough that I went down to my comic book shop with a big dresser full of comic books and
Mm.
it in my head that I was going to sell them and make all the money that I needed. And I
Mm.
watched as that comic book store owner went through my comics. Lots of number ones were in there in mint condition,
Mm.
and he gave me a third of what they were listed for.
Mm.
And died, but I needed the money, and I ended up selling them. And it's one of the big regrets of my life. I wish that I hadn't done it. I wish that I had been a little more savvy, but I was a teenager and I didn't know
Mm.
anything. And
Right.
I feel like now as an adult, we have options that you can sell things on eBay or
Mm.
other marketplaces where you could get more, not just the value of what you pay for it, but you can actually get what something is worth. And I wish I could travel back in time like Marty
Oh
McFly,
yeah.
tell myself when I was 17, stop, right?
Yeah.
Hold on to that a little bit longer. But that's one of those things I kick myself about now.
Yeah, I mean that's the same with like video games, which I'm not a huge video gamer, but I do like playing video games still, and that's about the return on something used. If you go to say like a GameStop, which is like one of the only large retail used game stores there are. I mean, you'll see some mom and pops depending on like what town you're in, but um, you go there with say a game they sell for $40 used, they'll give you like maybe $8 to $10 or something. Like it's usually 20 to 30% of what it's worth. And like I wish I too could go back in time and have some of the toys because like, this thing originally in the '90s it was a little bit smaller. This is more of an adult collectible. Fits in a human's hand, an adult's hand. Um, Before these started coming out, these re-releases and stuff, it kind of devalued the original a little bit because people just wanted to have one, to have. But the original ones in a box, even now, or you could probably sell for like $100 to $200
Yeah,
if it's still in the box. But before these re-releases and stuff came out, you could get maybe not twice that, but like 25% more. So you might be able to get one for like or sell one for like $300 to $400, and it's kind of crazy that I remember seeing in my head like all these toys that I had, and like now on eBay it's like $400 for one toy. What? Are you kidding me? So what I would do is I'd go back and buy two of every toy that I owned when I was a kid. Leave myself as a young kid with one who could then play and break it and lose it, and then I would take the other one to the future with me, and then just still have the memories of having played with them, and then have all this money today. And same with video games. Like imagine like an old Atari, brand new in the box, still sealed up. That's like hundreds of dollars right there. I mean, it's crazy. And for me, I've never really built like a huge collection of one particular thing. And when I go to sell, I'll look up pricing. I've sold on eBay before, but I always try to sell directly to someone else who is building a collection.
right.
Because I'll have maybe, this one Hot Wheels car, which is pretty common. You can find it anywhere right now. But maybe in like 10 years, there's going to be one guy that's like, that's the last thing I need. And like $20, $30, who knows?
Right. Well, I really do think those are people that are probably more likely to pay you what something is worth.
hmm
They're not trying to, buy it low and sell it high.
Right.
They're they're buying it because they really love it and they're passionate about it.
And
So
that's why I like selling it to those people. Like I don't have a lot of stuff, but like when I slowly over like a year or two will build up a few things, I could sell for like $200 or $300 in a very tight pinch or something if I needed to. I don't buy it for that reason. I buy it to have it enjoy myself. Because my dad always would say, like, why are you selling all that stuff? Like, I need the money. He's like, yeah, but I mean, like, you're losing money. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not buying it to sell it. I'm buying it and selling it when I need to, but I always sell it to the people that would appreciate it as much or more than me instead of going online and saying, here, take it. And then they flip it around for twice as much, and that's kind of how like the video game systems today, Xbox and PlayStation, the brand new game consoles that just came out, you can't find them in a store. They're not selling them in a store. They're in such high demand. People will go and then when they did have them, buy 3 or 4, and these are like $500 a pop, and you flip them on eBay $1,200-$1,300 each, and people are paying it.
that's just crazy.
It's ridiculous. It's like I've told people, like, maybe if I had the money to buy 2, I would buy 2, sell 1 for maybe just over what it costs. I would go maybe $500 retail and say, how about $600? Make a little bit sure, but don't rip people off completely, because to people buying online, like $600 compared to $1,200, like I'm going to buy that one.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if it's a short supply, there's going to be a higher value on it. Right. So yeah, but $1,200-$1,300 for something that costs $5 is just insane. And considering like mid-year, they're going to be in abundance in every store. So it's like you could have waited 6 months to a year and saved $400-$500.
Yeah, this Christmas we bought my oldest daughter a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. Okay.
And even then I balked at spending $299
mm-hmm.
on a video game console. But it was the one big gift that she wanted. We had the funds to do it, and we ended up purchasing it. But this was the smaller, just the handheld one, not the one you can play on your TV.
Right. Yeah.
And she really likes it, but still, the price tag on that thing had a little bit of sticker shock.
It's crazy. I mean, I used to have one of the bigger ones that you can attach to the TV and everything. And again, I needed some money, and I sold. Again, originally I had paid, I think, $300 brand new, and I sold it for $200. That was a little bit of a loss, but it was used. It wasn't in the mint condition that it once was, and I thought $200 was fair, maybe a little more than fair. But then a lot of the times I end up like regretting the things that I sell. Like, oh, I really wanted to keep that. But sometimes you do what you have to do, and it always seems to work out. And then selling the things, it's not like I have some big epic collection that I made like $1 million on. It's for me, it was just like, oh, I gotta make a car payment or one little thing I'm short on. It's like, oh, if I'm not that short, I'm not gonna sell anything because I'm not gonna make a lot of money anyway.
Right.
Sort of like a pawn shop, but you don't get it back. I mean, but yeah, I've always liked I've never stopped buying toys, or I like having action figures because I don't sit and play with them like I used to, but I'll put them in a pose or whatever, and then maybe keep some in a box. But I like to be silly sometimes, and my uncle and I and one of his friends, we like to try to make little movies with them, but kind of like the way we do it, though, it's not like stop motion animation because that takes so much time. I tried doing it. It takes forever because you're looking at frame by frame like old school animation, and it's just like move his leg, picture, move his leg a little bit more, picture, and now try to make him jump. Okay, how do we do that? But we take them and kind of hold them down and move them without seeing our hands, like a puppet kind of like.
Okay.
And so, I mean, we'll make little movies like that, and it's fun. I've bought a couple of figures. I bought that really neat Flash figure, which I think is cool. He's got the clear lightning bolts coming off of his legs that you can pop in or out. I have a Darth Vader, so I have this. He has a little red lightsaber that you can pull the saber out and like put it back in, and it clips to his belt. I love stuff like that because I wanted to do like crossover videos. I'm like, what happens if Darth Vader fought the Flash? Like that would be interesting. And of course, I don't have some big budget where I can have lightning shooting everywhere and all that kind of stuff. I did do a cheesy one time where I took a piece of fishing line, which I actually have the little spool of it still right here. Take a piece of fishing line and tie it to a figure and then dangle it like, look, it's the Force. I'm leaping. And it's cheesy but fun, so we do that sometimes. We tried to set up a contest back in October, but we never did finish it. And I had this idea of doing a commercial, like a parody of one of those old. I think it was from the early 2000s of the male enhancement products. You know, with because Darth Vader and the Force and his lightsaber coming out, and then I saw the Flash, and he has issues in that department because he's just too fast, you know, things like that. Like I thought it would be funny to put together something like that,
Right? That's really brilliant.
And then go maybe put them on YouTube and have a few little fun times with that, and see if people enjoy it. If they don't enjoy it, or two people watch it, it's still fun to sit and kind of create something, and you know you're using other characters, but you're able to like come up with ideas and stories, and it's like writing, but kind of like just ad-libbing most of it,
right?
And see how creative you can be. I guess that's why I like collectibles and toys. It's the nostalgia and the creativity, especially with Legos. Like you could literally build anything you want.
Yeah, you know, a couple of years ago, I was actually for my 40th. I had a superhero themed birthday party, and so everybody showed up for my birthday party in costume, right? Either in costume or wearing a superhero outfit. My brother dressed up as Wolverine. He had made the Wolverine mask.
Mm-hmm.
He'd also made a Captain America helmet and shield.
That's cool.
But one of the neat things that I had gotten for a birthday present from him is he gave me this. I don't know. It was sort of like a shoebox size, but in it had. When I was a kid, I think I had sold him some of my old comic books as well.
Okay.
He had held on to them all these years.
Oh wow!
At that birthday party, he gave a lot of those back to me.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was awesome. I thought I lost those comics forever, and I had spent a lot of time reading them, and so it was just one of those. It was like a memory attached to it. Of all the times that I had spent collecting them and reading them and enjoying them, and you know, just to kind of paint a picture of how big a comic book fan I was. We lived in a very small town called Yermo. Yermo was 14 miles outside of the next major, well, even relatively small city, Barstow. We had one gas station. It was a big deal when we had Jack in the Box come to town because we didn't have any fast food places, one post office, no stoplights.
Wow.
There was a convenience store 3 miles away, and as kids, we would walk the 3 miles to this convenience store where they sold comic books.
Wow.
We would buy a comic book, we'd buy a snack, we'd get a drink, and then we would walk 3 miles back home, right in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Oh my gosh.
110-degree weather, but we loved comic books so much.
Mm-hmm.
We walked 6 miles round trip just to get them. And I think I can't think about when I think about collecting, when I think about comic books, when I think about that, there was something it was something important to me, that it was valuable, that it was worth, uh, you know, that kind of walking through the desert in order to get it. And I think I get it why some people dedicate their lives to collecting,
Hmm.
and why they put them on display in their homes, because there's just something uh, there's something about them that captivates the imagination. And even though right now I don't have as many as I used to, uh, they're still vital to me, even in middle age. So
Yeah, I never really collected comics myself, but it's the same thing. Like, I think I have a partial love for Green Lantern. I mean, I don't know much about the characters or the stories really, but I just the idea of the character, the name, because when my dad was a truck driver, I don't know why, but his truck CB handle was Green Lantern, and just that alone. And he's actually in his room. There's this. It's not an old like vintage or antique or anything, but it's an actual Green Lantern, like an oil lantern that he got because of that years later.
so
And
he was not. He didn't call himself Green Lantern because of the character.
I think it did come from the character, but I'm not really sure why. Because I remember when I was younger, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years old, or maybe even younger than that. I was in the truck with him once, which I went several times going on after that. But I remember he had a comic book under like the seat or somewhere in there, and he's like, "Look, it's me." I'm like, "That's not you. You're lying." But then that's when I learned like what the name was and what he like called it, like went by on the little CB handle. So he did base it off the character, but I don't know. There might have been more significance to that for him. I never really found out like why he chose the name because he wasn't really. I mean, he probably read comics when he was a kid because he grew up in the '60s. So I mean, I'm sure back then he like kids and boys in the '60s. It's like there was comic books in the like even back into the '40s. So I
Yeah,
mean, in the '30s. So I'm sure he collected some or at least read them. So maybe there was a Green Lantern comic when he was a kid, and he just really got attached to the name. And I don't know. And we actually watched the Green Lantern movie together a couple of years ago. And I actually one of the first times I actually watched it all the way through, to be honest. But then after learning Mark Guggenheim had been involved in it, I was kind of bummed out that his version essentially didn't get made. But I liked that movie more because I watched it with my dad and stuff, and the Green Lantern name and all that. But yeah, it still kind of puzzles me. I don't know. He wasn't like a huge comic book kind of person, but basing his CB handle off of a comic book character really surprised me because I would watch The Flash and he would watch a little bit of Flash with me, but like he didn't. You could tell he wasn't really a super fan of it. He didn't really care what he watched. He was kind of content with watching almost anything. Um, Except little documentaries and stuff like that. If it wasn't a topic of interest to him, he was like, he didn't like it. Which I mean, if you're watching a documentary and you're not into the topic, then of course it could be boring. But but yeah, I mean it's just one of those things. I never really asked him like, why did you choose that name? But I'll never know. But it's still pretty cool that he did have a superhero name. Kind of wish his name was the Flash, but I think the Flash is probably my overall favorite comic book character, at least right now. Um, I really want to start collecting comics and figures of comic book characters. That was I think that might be the first one of an actual comic book character. I really wish I had some CW themed action figures. I know they existed. It's like in the last season of Flash that we saw, or a few seasons, I think they did it. They had a little Flash action figure, and I remember when Oliver first found out he had a son. His son had the Flash action figure,
right.
and so I want like that, not that exact one, but like one like that, and I haven't been able to find any, and it's crazy. And so when I saw this Flash figure the other day, I was like, I have to have that, and so. Unfortunately, it was like $16 for one, action figure. And I know when I was a kid, they were like $5 or something like that, or $4 or $5. and now it's like a $4 or $5 figure will be about this size.
Right.
And like a 6 to 8 inch, like standard, like 6 inch action figure is going to cost you about $15 to $20, depending on what it is. I saw a Superman character, a Superman figure based on a character from a video game, um, and it had some metallic, like actual die-cast parts on the body, and it was like a $30 action figure. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's crazy. Um, but I would like to have my own little set of Justice League figures, but not some ridiculous, like crazy, like Ice Batman or like Ninja Batman or anything crazy. Just basic, like the one I have, the Flash. His little ear lightning bolts are way too long. They stick out like 8 feet from his head. But aside from that, it looks cool to like pose him in a running position and just have him sitting there. And I would like to get a Batman and have him kind of like perched up on a shelf looking down at the others, maybe, and have a Superman hanging like in a flying pose. It would be fun, I think,
Yeah.
to do that.
I think it does. I mean, as a kid, I remember a lot of the toys and figurines that I would buy when I was growing up. Um, they were, things that I could buy with pocket change. I mean, we
Hmm.
would go down and recycle cans, and then we would go down to the little store on the corner, um, and and buy things. I do feel like a lot of the figurines and toys these days, they're almost far more expensive than the average kid could just go and pay for themselves,
Yeah.
right? I do feel like that's an unfortunate thing. Um, they gone are the days where they're priced at something that a kid could afford with their allowance money.
Right. I mean, that's how I used to buy like video games and action figures. I would go. I used to love, like we talked about before. I loved professional wrestling growing up in the '90s. I was a huge fan, and so I would buy like a wrestling figure every weekend. I get an allowance. I go and I got like $10 a week or something like that, or maybe five or $10 a week, and I would go and buy a figure because it was like $4.99, and I'd have a whole set of these guys, like all these characters, and I would sit and like make them fight and everything. And then now the same size, almost made the same way, are like $12, $13 at least. And then some of the more detailed characters and figures that are more posable will be higher up there. But it's crazy because it's I guess they realize parents are buying this stuff for kids, and so they're going to spend the money. And I get it, but like you said, the average kid's not going to be able to go, and like the average kid is going to have to start delivering like Uber Eats or like Grubhub or something instead of doing a paper route.
Right.
You know?
I mean, hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but still,
Yeah,
uh, I couldn't imagine trying to get a full time job to pay for my comic book, figurine habit. Uh,
yeah,
but that is something that I've noticed. They just have gotten expensive, and kids have been priced out of the market, right? So
yeah,
unless your parents are buying it for you, and growing up, my parents wouldn't do that, right? If I was going to buy clothes or anything, it had to come from money that I earned, and so
mhm,
I'm sure there are kids who are kind of in the same boat.
I'm
So
sure.
I know we've been talking about toys and kind of novelty things. I do want to shift directions just because
Okay,
I stumbled on it. Did you happen to watch WandaVision?
I have not. I need to get back on Disney. I haven't been on there in a while, but I've been hearing a lot about it. I know not a lot of detailed things, but either like I love it or I hate it. Um, I actually read one person say it was complete garbage. I'm like, there's no way. I haven't seen it, but there's no way it could be complete garbage.
So I no, so
But
I will say that I had watched the show without reading any reviews. I hadn't watched
mm,
any commercials. All I knew was that it was a show, new material that was starring Wanda Maximoff and Vision, and so
mhm.
I didn't know what to expect. What I will say is that the first two episodes, which are available right now on Disney Plus, um, they are far different than anything you might read. And part of it or that you might see. And part of it is we're so used to seeing them in a battle, right? In modern
Mhm.
times, in a battle, ready to fight. And in this part, it begins in the 1950s, right? I don't know if you've ever
Okay, yeah.
watched the original Bewitched TV show,
Yeah. Mhm.
but it's filmed entirely in black and white,
Hmm.
and Wanda and Vision are essentially hiding in uh, in an episode of the 1950s Bewitched,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay.
Even with the studio audience laugh track, and you know, they're trying to hide the fact that they're superheroes under the guise of her being a housewife and him, being a business person. Um, it's very,
Okay.
and yet as you watch it unfold, you realize that things aren't as they seem. Right? On one level, you might think, oh, they're just simply playing nostalgia on
Mhm.
on a classic TV show, and then you notice things out of place, right?
Hmm.
It's also in the black and white, and then there's a thing in color that kind of pops up that doesn't belong there.
Okay.
Uh, Things are starting to fall apart a little bit, and we don't know why. I'll try not to be too spoilery with it, uh,
That's fine.
but I will say that I'm intrigued, and I'm really interested in where it's going. It was one of those shows that I had started watching it, and my wife came in and watched it just because it looked like Bewitched. In fact, my mother-in-law passed through the living room and she saw it, and she sat down and watched it. And it was funny and a little silly, but at the same time, you know that there's a lot more going on
Hmm.
than than anybody lets on. And in this case, nobody said it. Um, this version of Vision still has the stone
Hmm.
on his forehead, and so my guess is that they haven't told us that this is taking place in between the events of Civil War and the Infinity War, right? That
Yeah.
where Wanda and Vision have been running around Europe together. So it's
Yeah.
I if you haven't seen it, I'd say go check it out just so you know what people are talking about. Um, they Disney Plus is doing the cruel thing of releasing the first two episodes and then making you wait for the third one. And so
Yeah.
that's
I've seen it.
I love shows that just give it to me all at once, so I can
Yeah.
binge it in a weekend. But I'm sure that they've learned that from the Mandalorian, that if people binge it, they'll sign up for it, watch it all in a weekend, and then drop it. Uh,
Exactly.
but go check it out. I think you'll like it. At least it will be something we can talk about for next time.
Yeah, and I may, I was gonna say like I may wait until the season is over and then watch it all and then drop it. But I mean, I am one of those people because it's like it depends on what the service has. If there's a ton of content, like I'm finding with HBO Max, I would be more likely to keep it. Or like a Netflix, it was funny because I've seen The Office probably 10 times all the way through, and there's 9 seasons, and Netflix officially does not carry The Office anymore.
Oh gosh.
So they've gone over to NBC's Peacock streaming service, which is understandable. NBC owns the property and everything, but it's what's cool about the Peacock service is I'm noticing a lot of other streaming services starting to do this. They'll have the regular episodes, but on Peacock they have some of the what they called mega episodes. They would do a 40 or 50-minute episode of The Office, and I'm sure other shows have done this. But on Netflix, they had condensed it and edited down to a TV version where it was 20 minutes. Now, the initial airing of some of those episodes were the longer version, and then replays were down condensed versions for regular sized episodes. Peacock is showing the full extended episodes, and not only that, they have extras. They'll have a laugh track, not laugh tracks, but blooper reels and stuff, and deleted scenes. They have all that laid out on the service that you can go in as a feature and watch.
That's cool.
And I think that's really awesome. You don't see that with a lot, and I've noticed a couple of services starting to do that. But yeah, when The Office was on Netflix, that's pretty much all I watched. I started watching Cobra Kai and all those other shows that started popping up. I really got fascinated with the Making of the Murderer documentary series, which of course is different than some fictional thing, but I like murder documentaries. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's kind of like you got to wonder, like, did they do it? Did they not do it? Or if they didn't do it, who did? Like, I love that mystery of it all. I kind of feel bad because it's almost like you're you're glorifying this actual tragedy for entertainment, but it's you're not entertained so much as you are just intrigued. Like, oh my god, I hope justice prevails, but like this, I can't stop watching. Um, it's sort of like a car accident. You pass one, you're not going to go, oh, I'm not going to watch. You're going to look and see like what's going on.
I think there is something indelible to the human psyche that
Mm-hmm.
we naturally gravitate to things that are catastrophic,
Yeah.
right? It's the mushroom cloud, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is both terrible and awesome, right? And I think that um, there is something to that. We don't. It's like why people watch horror movies or why they enjoy being scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do people pay good money to throw themselves out of a perfectly good airplane, right? Um, we there is something about it that captures our imagination, whether we are living vicariously through it and we get to experience it like we're there, or whether it is the mystery of it that it's out there for us to be solved. Um, there is something about it that sucks us in. I used to
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy watching the CSI shows.
Right. I
I think
do. I love those.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that in many ways they've made nerdy nerdy science lab technician geeks heroes. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody even knew what a CSI was until that show came out, and I think a lot of kids ended up looking into the field just because of the
Mhm.
show. I think that sometimes that's the case.
I had heard of the term CSI, but I never knew what it stood for until the show. I'm like, oh, crime scene investigator. That's what it means. And it like 10 years after hearing the word, I didn't know what it was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, and then of course on the Flash, it's like, oh, he's a CSI. I remember that from watching that show CSI.
Right.
I mean, and I loved all those cop shows and drama shows. My dad loved there was the NCIS, I think it was, oh, and different shows too, and like Law and Order. And I never knew that Mark Guggenheim was involved with Law and Order until
Oh,
like years later.
wow.
I think he did a few episodes, maybe, or directed or written. Um, and I think there's another show. Was it L.A. Law or one of those law shows that he's actually doing again? I think it is. And so that's interesting. I've always loved those shows because I always try to race the show. I'm like, okay, I start the episode and it's like cum 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 da, 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 and like the theme songs, and I'm like, all right, I'm getting into it. I'm waiting. I'm like, oh, murder. Okay, the mailman did it. And I try to like see, am I right? Of course, my guess changes like 20 times in the episode,
Of
but
course.
but I
Well,
mean, still.
yeah. I mean, I think these are shows that they know that you're trying to work it out, and they make it. They go above and beyond, trying to make sure
Mm,
that they don't make it obvious. They'll
right.
misdirect you in one direction, and it's actually going this way. What's funny about like Law and Order um, and a lot of these, there's shows that often come in that they come on in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you sleep with the TV on. It is just a normal thing for my wife and I just to have some background noise, and it's generally one of those kinds of shows that I'll wake up to at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's on.
That's
Uh,
how I've been lately with Titans. I mean, I'll turn it on later in the evening and then fall asleep, and then I'm waking up at like 3 a.m. 6 episodes later, like, what's going on? What is Robin doing? Like what? And it's confusing, but then it's like, oh, okay, I turn it off and go back to sleep.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those shows that I don't want to fall asleep to.
Yeah, right. I need to start watching it earlier, or maybe just not watching. My problem is I'll watch one or two, and then like, oh, one more, and then it's always that point where it's late. And that's why I'm frustrated with working schedules, and I haven't really talked about that on here that much, but I was working like a 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. for a long time, about a month now, 3 weeks, something like that. And now they're shifting me into like a 2 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Right.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm waking up between 6:30 and 7 o'clock every morning. Now I'm going to have to get used to staying up until like 4 in the morning or something just to lose sleep so that I can stay up all night. And well, not all night, but still. But yeah, we've got a few guests lined up that I was stressed about because of the time changing, but I think it might work out with a later time slot. I was wanting to do maybe on Fridays, but then Fridays are the same thing. It's like, 2 p.m. to 11, 2 p.m. to 11, 2 p.m. to 11. So I both hate and love the fact that they're letting me have full-time hours because I, of course, need the money. It's always nice to have more money, but at the same time, it's like, I need to do this thing.
Right.
But of course, I spoke with Marilyn Gigliotti, and she's great with 11 o'clock. Well, I don't know if she's great, but she's okay with it because she's actually in LA, so just like you on the same time. So for you guys, it would be like 8:30, which isn't too terribly late. But my worry is with Lee Newton, with her music and her and everything, having her episode on. I think it was supposed to be February 7th, I believe. I haven't heard back from her on changing in time. So hopefully that works out. And if that works out and people can get on with the 11, or well, for me it would be like 11:30 p.m. But then for everybody else, if that can work, I think that would be great. I wasn't going to talk too much about that here, but I mean, I'm going to have to go and repost some of the stuff anyway if the times change. So
yeah, I think just the reality. It's the reality of the situation. I think that it works for me because with the 3-hour time change,
right
between us. 8:30 is nothing. I can handle that just fine. If it were flip-flopped, it might be a little bit more, I guess, as long as you don't mind recording that late.
Yeah. I mean, I would prefer to do it. It's like I've told some people, like I wanted to build a consistency. So I know sometimes when we did these shows in the past before the video stuff, we would like, this week we're not going to do it, or that week we're not. Or sometimes it's like, let's do it early tonight. I started to the point where we had gone on and done Sunday evenings 8 or 8:30 so consistently for so long, and we started getting this little bit of momentum with guests. It's like, okay, we had 1 or 2 guests, and then now we have like 3, and they're like, oh my gosh, where's it going to go from here? And then I think building that consistency is good for just growing, because I explained it to my mom, like it's kind of like if you watch one of your favorite shows come on at 8 o'clock on Sundays, and then next week it came on 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, then the next week it came on Friday nights. It's like you would stop watching that show because you would never know when it came on.
Right.
And so
we've seen shows that have moved around time slots and lost viewers as a result. So I totally understand as far as us going live and having people that are watching this. Being consistent is important. That said, I think that our viewers will understand.
Yeah.
Sometimes we both have active lives, and they're just going to have to kind of work with this a little bit.
And this is not supposed to be a permanent thing. My first instinct was like worry because you'll never do a podcast again, but it's supposed to be temporary. I'm still fairly new to the job myself. And I'm not even gonna like hide where I work. I started working at Walmart, which I don't think Walmart listens to independent podcasts from people. But even if they did, I'm not saying anything bad about the company, so I'm not too worried. And it pays decent, and I work in the electronics department. It's fun, I don't mind it at all. It's easy work. It's stressful sometimes, but it's not that hard. And I'm lucky enough to get the 40 hours a week, so it's like, okay, well that's great. But the only downside is they really need people in the evenings, like late evenings. And so that was unfortunate. I would rather, and I used to be such a night person, and that's the thing, but I was always lucky enough to be off on Sundays. So that worked out. or I would be off always before 7 o'clock on Sundays, and it always lined up. But I wanted to keep that consistency, at least with the same day or the same time slot. One of the two things. I figured if we changed both, it would just throw things way off, and we don't really have much of a window of choice there. I could probably have moved it from Sundays at 8:30 to, say, Fridays at 8:30, and maybe been more likely to get off at 7 p.m. on Fridays. But then I was like, oh, I don't know if Friday would work all the time for everyone. I don't know. Because I thought to myself, Sunday's just a perfect day. And then on the East Coast time, it seems like 7 to 8 o'clock or in that area. Who does anything on like at 8:30 on a Sunday? You know, I mean, anywhere. Like, not many people do many things. But I think 11:30 would work as long as like the guests, and we don't have a guest every single week. So if it's just us, like now, it would be fine.
Yeah.
And I think our first one is already willing, and I made the little poster for. We got excited this morning, and I woke up like, oh, I can't believe we have all these people. I would sit there with my phone on these little programs and found a picture, cut it out, made a background, and all this stuff. And then I now have to change the time on that and repost it all over again. But it is what it is. Things happen.
Yeah.
I've calmed down about it since. I think I was very earlier, but it was more or less, I mean, it was no one's fault, but it's more or less starting the job. What's your availability? Do you have any ongoing things or anything that you can't work? And it's like, oh, great. This is my chance. Like, this is where I'm going to just really get what I want. Like, Sunday evenings, can't work past 7. Other than that, I'm good. Okay, that sounds fair. 3 or 4 weeks later, oh, there's no availability. No one else can work it. You're going to have to until we can get someone else to cut. Okay. And my mom and people have told me, like, just tell them again. And it's like, you don't understand. Telling them again won't make the situation magically fix itself. I mean, it is what it is. I could either call in sick every Sunday or and eventually get in trouble, or just kind of shift things a little bit.
I mean, you are essentially low man on the totem pole, right?
Yeah.
The more you stay there, the more clout you get, and you'll have the opportunity to, advocate for a more convenient work schedule. So that's just kind of the way that it works.
Yeah.
Hey, I hate to cut things loose here, but
yeah, we've been on a while.
Yeah, but hey, it's been fun. Thanks for the talk, and I look forward to seeing this when it gets posted. So
I'll get it posted. Yeah, the Facebook post will be right away as soon as it's over. Then I'll probably get the YouTube up tomorrow.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good night, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right, sounds great. Take care.
Yeah, you too. See ya.